Okay, in this section we're going to look at something that's common to all the Microsoft Office applications. It's something that's core to the actual system itself, and it's the file format. And this hasn't changed in the previous versions. Actually, it's stayed the same for so long that if you ask the average person the question of what is the extension on the end of a file that's been produced using PowerPoint, almost all the time, you'd get the answer of what, Mo? What is the file?
PT.
PPT. Very good. So that hasn't changed. You may be wondering, good God, they haven't gone and changed the extensions, have they, when we've only just got familiar with them all? And they have. Not only have the extensions to the file names themselves changed, the default file extensions that when you save a document, a PowerPoint presentation or an Excel spreadsheet or a Word document, but they've actually gone and changed, Microsoft have changed what's inside the file as well. Of course, your content will still be in the file, but the way in which it's organized and the structure to it has changed. And there's several reasons as to why they've changed, and we'll look at the why in a second. Let's just look at what the file format extensions were and what they've become. So if we have a quick, I've got a slide here for us to quickly fly through. The extensions and what they, Word used to be a .doc, and Word template used to be a .dot. Excel used to be an XLS, its template used to be XLT. These are the three letters at the end of a file name, traditionally. PowerPoint was PPT, and the PowerPoint templates were POT. And these have now changed, and as we go through the new file extensions, you'll notice that they're actually very similar to the previous ones, except that there's an X added to the end. And really, that's going to be easy for us to remember. And also, it's going to be easy for us to be able to notice a new Office 2007 file format. We know from, if you've seen these sessions, the other sessions in our 2007 series, you'll know that Office 2007 allows you to import or open up documents that have been produced in previous versions, so that's okay. You'll also go on to find out in this session that previous versions of Microsoft Office applications are going to be able to open up documents that have been produced in Office 2007. You may be thinking, of course they can, Ishmael, as long as we, using Office 2007, save them in a previous file format. Does that make sense? But actually, you can have Office 2007 installed on your machine and save the file as an Office 2007 document and have somebody using Office 2003 open that document. Okay, and that's something that people won't know by default when they start playing around with Office 2007.
Basically,
Layla.
2007 Word document, you save it as docx. So for the 2003 version, will you have to save it as .doc?
Okay, that's an interesting question. Basically, how do we do it? How can you have a new piece of software saving content into a new file format and be able to allow previous and old applications to be able to open them? Is it simply, as your question suggests, is it simply by changing the extension? It isn't. Because one of the things I said at the beginning of this session was not only have they changed the extension, they've changed the way in which they store the content inside the file. Always remember, for compatibility to work in anything, in my experience with computing, something has to change. Okay? Previously, you knew that Office 2007 saved documents could be opened by previous versions as long as Office 2007 changed the way it saved them so that they could open them. Do you see where the change took place? The change took place at the Office 2007 point. I'm going to show you, what I'd like to get across to you is that Office 2007 can continue to save the file in its new format as long as we go and make a change on the previous version of the application. Does that make sense? A change must take place somewhere. And the way it's done is by installing a piece of software onto the old version of Office that then enables it to be able to open up the new files. Does that make sense? Okay, so always think about whenever you're creating content, who is the ultimate recipient going to be? Who is the user going to be? If it's going to be 2007 users and old application users, what should you do? What kind of file format should you save it in? The debate you'll have is, once I've shown you that, once I've explained the fact that you can do multiple combinations, you can save it in various formats, the debate you'll have is, which one should I choose? Should I make 2007 save the file in its new format and make everybody else who's going to open it up be forced into installing the new piece of software that allows it to read my file format? Or are you going to save it for their benefit in an older format so they can access it? Well, to make that distinction, to make that decision and help you decide which route you want to take, we ought to look at some of the benefits of the new file format. Forget the extensions for a minute, the new file format, what they offer us. And the benefits effectively are really interesting, in fact. The first one is that of integration. And I'll explain why. Collectively, all the old types of file formats that you had in the previous versions of Office are known as binary formats. All the new ones are known as XML formats. Now, binary ones, effectively, it doesn't matter about the technical reasons as to why they came up with the word binary, and it doesn't matter about the mathematical base numbering system of binary. Let's not go that deep. Effectively, all the old binary versions were based on a method of storing the PowerPoint slide or the Excel spreadsheet or the Microsoft Word document, and the method was created by Microsoft. They didn't refer to other people. They didn't get in touch with other industry leaders. They didn't combine their thoughts with other manufacturers of other products. Microsoft themselves, in Microsoft's premises at Microsoft's headquarters, came up with a way that they wanted to store things. Of course, the problem with that is when company B comes up with a way of saving their files, do you see that they become incompatible? They don't work together. Okay? So integration is a key feature that Microsoft wanted to have in 2007. And the only way they could do that is by opening up and discussing with other software providers and other computer manufacturers and operating systems and deciding a standard to follow. And there happens to have been a standard around for a while now called XML. And they've really followed that structure. So in simple English, what Microsoft have said is that they're actually going to store effectively the contents of your PowerPoint presentation in different sections. So the color scheme that your PowerPoint slides are being used are going to be saved as a tiny little file that defines the color scheme. The actual text inside your PowerPoint slides will be stored as another little tiny file, and that'll be the content. Any photos and JPEGs that you use will be stored as separate little JPEGs. So by the time you actually save your PowerPoint presentation, you suddenly find yourself with a lot of tiny little files that together create your PowerPoint presentation. Does that make sense? All the text from all your slides in that one presentation are in a little tiny file. All of the color schemes in all of your presentation are kept in another little file. Each of the JPEGs are stored separately as individual files. I don't want to carry around loads and loads of little files, nor do we see loads and loads of little files when we save a PowerPoint presentation. What do we see? One file that ends in PPTX. Clear? Lo and behold, the PPTX file is a zip. If you're not familiar with zip, it's a packed up file compressed to save space. And inside it are tiny little files. Does that make sense? So that's what they've done. They've split it into little sections. And what that means is businesses can say, hey, that's great. I've got a program written by a totally different company, and it wants to be able to take a PowerPoint presentation, not open it up as a presentation. We just want to take that PowerPoint presentation and just change one little tiny aspect of it. But because we've got 17,000 PowerPoint presentations, we don't want somebody sitting there and opening it up, making a change to the year at the bottom, copyright 2007, and saving it. Opening another one, making a change and saving it. We want to use this program we've developed in the company to make changes to 17,000 PowerPoint presentations in a go. Do you see how they can do that? Because it's all laid out systematically as to how they can open up each of the zips and modify the files. So integration is good. We've got interoperability and royalty-free. In other words, one application now can open up the Microsoft Office documents. Microsoft Office can open up documents that have been produced by a totally different application, as long as it's been saved in the same way. Because XML is a standard that everybody knows, that's going to be quite likely. It also means that you can take something as simple as Notepad, which you may be familiar with, or WordPad that comes installed on Windows by default, and start opening up Word documents and modifying parts. You don't have all the features in Notepad and all the features in WordPad that you have in Word, so don't expect to be able to do themes, smart art, and all that kind of fun stuff. But you could, if you really were stuck. You had a Microsoft Word document emailed to you in the new file format. You were sitting at a cyber cafe that didn't have Microsoft Office. Your thesis had to be submitted, or your coursework had to be submitted that afternoon, and you wanted to make one slight change at the end, or as a silly example, somebody else wrote the homework for you and you needed to stick your name at the bottom of the document before you submitted it. I'm joking, but it's that way. With that analogy, you remember it. You could then use Notepad, unzip the Word document into its tiny little constituent parts, open up one tiny section if you knew where to go, put your name in it, save it, package it all back, and no one would know that you didn't have Word to edit it with. Okay? And you haven't got to pay any fees to Microsoft to be able to start writing applications yourself, to be able to start opening up Word documents and doing fun stuff with it. So that's quite cool.